Hello and welcome to the Digital Marketing Canada podcast. This is episode number 1, and I am Andrew Schiestel of TBK Creative. Today's guest, who's going to join me in a few minutes, is Paul Pinchbeck, the VP of Marketing at Blue Mountain Resort. If you're a marketer, an executive, or a CEO, you're going to want to listen to this podcast. First off, Paul oversees the marketing at Blue Mountain Resort, a company that does approximately $100 million per year in annual revenue and consistently ranks in the top 3 of Canada's largest ski resorts. He has held a marketing role at Blue Mountain Resort, starting as a director of marketing in 2001 and was promoted to VP of marketing in 2014. He manages a team of 9 personnel in total. Each year, the company receives a whopping 2.5 million consumer visits, having grown from about 400,000 visits annually only 13 and a half years ago or so. On this podcast, you're going to learn some things such as the specific digital and social media channels Blue Mountain Resort uses. You'll hear that they have a very open policy when it comes to staff posting on social media channels. He explains this better, how they go about doing that, because I know a lot of companies would naturally be concerned about that. He speaks about how offline and online media blend together in his marketing mix. Paul reveals historically the budgetary split of media between offline and online and what percentage he sees that trending towards in the near future. Paul breaks down step by step how they constructed their current marketing campaign, Winter Warrior. You'll be able to pull some parallel lessons from it into your business. He provides tips if he was the VP of marketing for a smaller brand in his industry with less marketing budgets. He explains his approach to how he would grow that business. There could be some lessons there for you as well. We also talk about the different roles offline and online media can play during an online campaign. So there's some neat tidbits there. Paul also discusses the company's further foray into content marketing and marketing automation. You're going to learn more about what both types of marketing methods are and why you may want to use them in your business. All right, so without further ado, let's get on with the podcast. All right, Paul, so welcome to the call. Why don't we begin with just letting everybody know who you are and what do you do?
Well, hi everyone. I'm Paul Pinchbeck. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Blue Mountain Resort, just outside of Collingwood, in the town of Blue Mountains, just north of Toronto.
Okay, so Paul, for the few people that may not know what Blue Mountain Resort is or where it is or what it does, what do you guys do up there?
What do we do up here? Almost what don't we do? Our history is in skiing and snowboarding, but starting really in the late 80s and really blossoming through the 1990s, we've matured into a 4-season resort. So still Ontario's largest ski resort, number 2 or number 3 in Canada, depending on whether our friends at Tremblant have a great year or a poor year. But the exciting part is really the expansion into summer attractions. So we've gone from 90 hotel rooms to 1,100, including a 4-star Westin property. We've gone from 400,000 skier visits to 2.5 million annual visits throughout the year. All sorts of things to do.
What was that number again, Paul? The last piece. Where were you and where are you at now?
From about 400,000 skier visits to 2.5 million annual visits.
Wow. How many years was that?
Well, it's taken us 13 years to do it.
Okay.
So just through the since the millennium.
Amazing growth. Okay. So now you hold the VP of marketing role up at Blue Mountain. That's going to be very relevant for a lot of our listeners because who will be listening oftentimes is either a CEO of a medium-sized organization, a VP or marketing director of a medium-sized organization, or a marketing coordinator, but really in that marketing kind of role, trying to figure things out and growing their revenue using the web. How did you, maybe let's just start with your background, like how did you actually end up in Collingwood at Blue Mountain as the VP of marketing? What's sort of that story?
Wow. What started that story? ultimately, I think it was probably an early '80s encounter with the snow sports industry. That was my background, was the retail and wholesale side of skiing, snowboarding, and sporting goods, and ultimately decided to take a little break and move into the auto industry on the agency side for a while. And there I was sitting in a Vancouver airport one April, realizing I was just newly married, had a daughter on the way, and all of a sudden a friend of mine said, you're one of those skier things. You should apply for this job. And it was actually the director of marketing at the time.
Okay.
And I thought, you know what, Blue Mountain, great spot, lots of potential. InterWest had just purchased 50% of the company and provided the much needed capital to get the village going. And 13 and a half years later, here we are.
Okay, so you've jumped back. So before the agency, you were on corporate side, it sounded like, doing
Yes.
Skiing, snowboarding type retail.
Correct.
Corporate. You then actually had a stint on the agency end, more in the automotive sector, which is very much different than what you're doing now. And then,
Sure.
and then the director of marketing opened up at Blue Mountain. You applied, gained that position, and then moved your way up to VP.
Absolutely correct.
Okay. Now, before we kind of dive into some marketing conversations, I want to understand the relationship a little bit better at Blue Mountain. So you have, for anybody that's been there, it's a fabulous resort. A lot of different types of accommodations, places you can go out, great leisure, all that kind of stuff. And there's different businesses there in which you can go in and you can get food or you can get drinks or whatever it is that you want to do. You can buy things. What's the relation, like generally, what's the relationship then between your corporation and then these different independent businesses? I'm just trying to understand the business model a little bit better there.
Well, unlike many resorts that people would go to, a Disneyland or another self-contained resort, the 70 or so shops, restaurants, and other activities within the village of Blue Mountain are in fact owned by independent entrepreneurs. In some cases, they're very successful business people who have Toronto-based locations for their restaurants or their retail, but in many cases, they're people who have a dream. They want to live in a resort environment. They want to make it, is what I often hear. And they're here running their businesses, creating these great brands one at a time. Our role and our relationship with them is one very much of cooperation. We could not deliver the experiences that we deliver if it wasn't for these individuals. The care and the effort that they put into creating their spaces, into delivering those fantastic meals or the unique retail experiences adds to our distinctiveness. And it's one that's very symbiotic.
Is it that you guys own the land and you're leasing it out to them? Is there some kind of like sharing of like that, and then also sharing of like a royalty type based on revenue as well?
We actually don't own the land anymore. The village lands were bought by Interwest in 1999. Subsequently, as each hotel was built, the individual hotel units are in fact a condominium. So the owners of those hotels place their units in our care to rent and out as hotel stays, but the lower spaces are in fact all independent of those individual hotels and are owned by a company called Skyline.
Okay.
And they perform the leasing function, much as one would if one was grabbing space in, say, a large shopping mall.
Okay. How many? It probably fluctuates throughout the year. But how many approximate employees are within Blue Mountain as a corporation?
Our core right now is about 550 full-time, year-round employees like myself. Okay. The peak is 1,800 in the winter, and the definition of summer as an employee experience sort of thing is we're not 500 employees in the summer. We're about 1,300, so we're heading towards the same level of employment summer and winter.
Okay, so let's talk marketing for a moment. To support anywhere from 550 to 1,800 employees and still show a profit at the end of the day, you need consumers to show up and buy services and products. So how do you guys, sort of maybe a little more higher level, how do you guys actually have people know about Blue Mountain and want to come visit you guys?
Well, I guess we could get into a channel discussion or a tactic discussion. I mean, ultimately, it's a very coordinated strategy that involves as many touch points as we can bring in. We clearly leverage in the winter our longevity, our history, and our success in the ski side of the business, and as we like to say, Blue Mountain is almost the brand name for skiing in Ontario. When one shifts out of that and into the summer, we've had to be very conscientious about building that recognition, so building the brand, the summer brand, in the eyes of the consumer, and that's involved quite a bit of work in honestly, broadcast, on the web. It's almost limitless, the channels that we're employing.
Okay. So let's drill down a little bit on the website. So from a kind of a channel perspective, if we're to do a checklist, like what are the actual channels you guys are active on with your brand?
We pretty much have a brand presence on all the social media channels that are relevant. So obviously the staples of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, but when you branch out, Google My Business, Google Plus, whichever the name of the day is that they choose to have for it, Pinterest, Instagram. In some cases, they're lesser parts of our strategy, but when you take that holy duo or the triumvirate or even maybe the four that are most relevant, we have presence there. When you think of other more direct marketing oriented channels, email, etc., obviously we cultivate and capture as much as we can to build relationships with our guests. An investment in email marketing, return stay, etc., and even soon to be marketing automation from an inbound perspective. We overlay that with a bit of a broadcast strategy to help drive back to the web.
Okay. Couple items there that I would just want to touch on. When it comes to let's start with social media. When it comes, and I actually am an active customer of yours. I was up there, I think, about a month ago or so, and I saw you guys on Instagram. So when it comes to social, who's actually managing your social channels?
We have split our social media up into a number of individuals around the resort. And, 5-6 years ago, if you had told me that I would have many full-time equivalents, employees operating our social media program, I would have said, well, God, I hope not, because it's going to be awfully expensive to fit into a marketing budget that's rather tight. And what's happened is we've really embraced a philosophy of being as open as we can. So within my team, there's 3 key individuals that each manage a portion of social media, but we've managed to spread it out around the resort. Our terrain park people have a role to play, particularly in the winter. Our events people have a role to play. We're contemplating onboarding as many keen individuals as we can from the organization to keep that content fresh, to keep it relevant and interesting. I mean, I think there's one thing that I do believe very strongly is that our approach to social media is not being just an offer a day, beating up on a customer, but rather trying to cultivate content that is interesting to our viewership, to our readership, is paying off in spades.
And so, on the social end, there's probably going to be some people listening, and they're going to be intrigued by that, because I think what happens a lot of times with medium or large size groups is they're big enough that there's a lot of stories out there that you simply can't tell, and you have a lot of employees around, but you're sometimes challenged in how do you sort of coordinate those bodies to tell the story at the right time, get the stories back to someone and get it out on the appropriate channel, and also do it in a way that's appropriate for the brand, all that kind of stuff, right? Can you share with our listeners, Paul, some tips on how you guys sort of went about that coordination? You said you have 3 people, which sounds like a more centralized approach, right? You have your terrain type department helping out with storytelling. You have your events people helping. Like, how do you, so it's all, it's all out there, but how do you kind of bring that all in so that correct message goes out through the right channel at the right time?
I think that organizations, small, medium, and even likely large, go through a number of steps in embracing social media, and we've seen the best and possibly the worst out there over the years. The first step is always command and control. Bring it all in, make it nice and tight. IT usually has a role in this one, where they have a policy that suggests that one cannot engage in social media during the work hours or using company equipment. That is often the sort of reactionary situation. We've embraced a little bit more of an open philosophy, and it's been difficult because to those that are passionate, and social media and over the last 5 years has been the passion of a number of people within the marketing team, and it's been challenging for them to spread it out to the human resources department, to the events department, to the operations guys. There's that natural desire to control something. What we do to facilitate that is a series of very organized, very open dialogues on a weekly basis during peak season, where we're sharing what we consider to be our best practices, taking in the needs of those individual organizations, be it one of our retail stores that we own, one of our, our human resources has a component there, our operations team, when we're making snow, when we're grooming trails, when we're getting ready to open brand new bike trails. They all have a role to play, and they all have a vested interest. Many times we will encourage them, that individual department, to post that, to make that post happen for them. When they're shy, the marketing team will step in and help write that, whether it's from a public relations perspective or from a social media perspective.
Can you, just to put a little bit of meat on the bone, so if you say HR, for instance, so HR is involved with social, can you give me an example of how they would be involved? Like, what's an example of them actually making a post? What's that about? Where is it going?
In a lot of cases, when you have a company that has a strong brand, I think that we want people who are aligned to our brand to become our employees. To me, HR has always had an opportunity to participate in social media, because those individuals that are orbiting our circles out on the internet are in fact potential employees. So what it looked like originally from HR is we would like our own social media account, Blue Mountain Jobs, or at Blue Mountain Jobs, as it were.
Gotcha.
What we prefer to see is an integrated approach with the core Blue Mountain social media handles, at Blue MTN Resort and Blue Mountain Resort on Facebook. I think this gets it makes for even an interesting read. It makes for knowledge. It makes for engagement with our core populace.
Mm-hmm. So an example then is if there's a job posting, when you say HR, is it oftentimes finding the right candidate out there, and then you are then doing that posting through some of your main social channels?
Yeah, it can be as simple as literally posting a job. Hey, Blue Mountain is out looking for X position. In many cases, we're trying now to bring HR content into our social media world and give people a glimpse of what it's like to be an employee here. So over the next year, you'll begin to see the inner workings of Blue Mountain as content within our social media sphere.
Okay. I've done work with various different organizations, and I find that people's comfort level with social media as a brand does vary dramatically. Yes. So you have certain groups, and you never really know. Just certain groups are very nervous or conservative or scared of it, and then other groups are very liberal about it. They're very comfortable and they're willing to dive in. How did you guys sort of overcome the whatever concerns may have been there about having different people within your organization be able to simply post on your different social channels? Because I think what's a common denominator with everybody is you definitely don't want something inappropriate or the wrong message to kind of go out. So what did you guys sort of do? What were the conversations you had to have so that so that your department was comfortable to sort of open up that the reins, if you will, a little bit on that?
I think it's fair to say that training and policy are part of our dialogue at all times. So we do have a social media policy, both for individuals who join Blue Mountain as part of the workforce, but we also have a policy in place for individuals who are active as spokespeople for the resort. The employee policy is somewhat restrictive, and we do ask that they moderate and control their posting on behalf of Blue Mountain. We have had incidents in the past where a well-meaning team member has jumped on to Facebook and said, well, I don't agree with that, and I'm an employee, and gosh darn it, and they didn't use gosh darn either. And that becomes a challenge. I think where we've really been great is spending some time with those ambassadors and those spokespeople to say, hey, we want you to do it. We want you to tell your story. Let's go through some scenarios and plan and train you to properly represent the brand.
Okay.
as an ambassador. And that's an ongoing thing. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, some people are very, very comfortable with social media. Other people are the reluctant participant. You really do need those people who are comfortable in and are immersed in that medium in order to be successful.
Okay, really, really great. If for those listening, because I think a lot of groups still don't have social media policies,
Mm-hmm.
or they haven't yet fully incorporated terms around social media within some of their employee policies. What would be one resource? So if someone's listening, they're saying, you know what, I like this. I've thought about it. I now need to go do something about that for my business. What would you recommend they do as that next step or that first step, Paul, so that they could then go about creating that proper policy that they're comfortable with?
Well, I think there's a number of resources out there. One is one's own common sense and a plan as to how the company wants social media to, and what it wants social media to do with it. Have a goal, have a concept, have strategies and tactics that get you there. That's the first part. The second part is to reach out to the industry at large, including social media agencies, individuals that are experienced and have a breadth of understanding. Our social media approach is not unique and it's not new, but it was formed out of having a very defined strategy as to what we wanted to get out of it, which was not to create another discount channel for Blue Mountain, but rather a way of telling our story. And we actually, the policy side of it came out of discussions with an agency that we had a relationship at the time. We actually adapted some of their learnings to suit our environment.
Okay, good advice. Now, size of your department, so marketing up there at Blue Mountain. These are just a little quick couple technical questions so that the listeners can understand sort of your makeup. So how many people are actually in your marketing department at Blue Mountain?
Counting myself, we have 9 individuals ranged against product planning. There's 2 people in product planning. We have a brace of individuals on the creative side, and of course the all-important internet and CRM components, as well as day-to-day PR.
Okay, so makes up 9 total.
Correct.
PR, CRM, web, creative.
Mm-hmm. Product planning, the traditional marketing manager role. Because we own so many businesses, it's important to have a contact, a face that our retailers can go to when they need that last-minute idea that comes out.
Yeah. And what services do you currently choose to outsource to agency vendors?
The consistent service that we outsource has over the years been media buying. We find that's a fairly specialist art and requires a tool set that, honestly, to get it done right, we're not prepared to invest in order to do it right. That investment just doesn't add up. Over the years, we have used outside services in just about every discipline, but I do prefer to keep those relationships non-contractual. So the ability to work with a specialist in for example, mobile apps, just to choose one at random, is fantastic for us. What we tend to do is form miniature project teams within the marketing team to be able to handle that. So we might input on creative, we might input on some of the programming or the UI, because I think what I've achieved here with the team is that we've managed to create a bunch of very, very passionate, very knowledgeable individuals who just need that last little bit to put everything together, and I think that's paid off in spades.
Right. Okay. And when you say media buying, are you speaking both offline and online media buying? You typically outsource, or do you just outsource one of those two?
We started in the offline world. We found that it was advantageous with the explosion of real-time bidding and retargeting and everything else to begin to make sure that we had a consistent look at our media. We tend to be the type of people that whether it's search or whether it's radio, we tend to be very analytical about what we put out there in the marketplace whenever we can. And I think that's a good practice for anyone to have as a takeaway, is analyze whatever you can and understand where it's efficient. Centralizing it with an agency partner has proven to be good from a global perspective. We're able to look at everything in one go, as opposed to having to run around and pull the search guy in and the social guy and the digital guy. Right. It helps us stay on track for an integrated campaign.
are you outsourcing your offline and online to one source, one vendor then? Is that what you're saying? That's what's working well for you guys right now?
No, we use one agency to help us with the planning, but we do not use just one vendor.
Okay, okay. But you're outsourcing both offline and online currently, the media.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, I want to be clear on that piece. Okay. Okay. And then what happens is certain types of specialty types of projects come up, and that's where you go out into the marketplace and try to find a specialty type of vendor to support you with that particular project, like a
right.
mobile. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go back to an earlier comment, Paul, that you made about using broadcast media, and I forget the terminology you used, but it was somewhat complementary to social or web. I remember you saying that. So can you give, and that's probably a conversation that a lot of the people listening right now are having, where they may be coming from very marketing plans that were very traditional in nature, whether you're doing, seasonally very large outdoor radio type of campaigns or whatever that mix is, right? And now you have web becoming very popular, very, very popular in everybody's marketing and communication. So how do you kind of go about, and you said something about complementary, I'm not using the same word, but how do you go about sort of bridging that broadcast to your web in a way that seems to make sense business objective-wise?
One of our challenges with broadcast is obviously tracking, where we do and I think that we have some integration, and that's really what we're talking about here is one solid integrated campaign across all of the channels. Essentially we're trying to drive the same messages through our broadcast, always driving back to our digital presence, and not always easy, but I think we're starting to achieve some real breakthrough with being able to keep the same message, the same consistent approach, but varying the medium.
Something I found, Paul, is in a couple campaigns, not only that we've run, but we've also observed, so clients have told us about some of their past experiences, is that oftentimes, and I'm very open to you having seeing it differently in your experience or seeing the same. What has occurred is, you have an online campaign, for instance.
Right.
Let's say it's landing page, sweepstakes, whatever that is, offer. You want people to come, fill out their information, or it could just be a website. And what we've experienced is that in those settings where one of the key objectives is to get someone to go to that page and do something, we're finding that online media seems to be producing a better result in having that objective fulfilled than offline media. And so our kind of theory behind it is that if you're driving in your car, you hear a radio ad, come to this website to sort of win something. I think there's more barriers for that person to actually get to the website, right? They would have to, hopefully if they're going to do it, take action, then they pull over, right? Pull out their phone, take that action. But in most cases, they need to remember it, right? And then they have to drive home. They got to, they get home and then their kids are screaming because they just got home from work and they got to feed them. And then hopefully in a couple hours, they're remembering that ad that they heard on the radio. It could be that landing page or it could be the Blue Mountain website. And then finally, they're actually taking action upon that. Have you found that at all as well, where the offline buying, it's tougher to track and measure the sort of that conversion point in an online versus online to online? What's your take on that?
Well, there's definitely no doubt that it's harder to manage and find and to measure the transition point with an offline campaign. Running radio ads, running television, running out of home is. Sorry about that, Andrew.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, no, you're good, Paul.
Clearly. Sorry, I'm just going to log back in here. I didn't expect that to happen. There we go. So it's definitely, there's no doubt, let me pick up where we were. There's definitely no doubt that it's extremely difficult to measure media in the offline world, particularly when you're driving something such as, let's just call it a contest entry, an email sign-up. Very much better and easier to do to measure the transaction in the online world. I guess where I would agree with you is that, and I think we're speaking the same language, is that the offline media can be very complementary to building that number of touch points that gets you to respond to something. I'm a big believer that let's just take simple direct marketing, for example. I believe direct marketing is more expensive, more successful when it's supported with an offline media buy. So, for example, and I think that holds through to digital. For when we get that banner ad, that you've heard that radio ad, you will go, yeah, I've got that recognition. I'm prepared to take that next step. So I think it's more of an aid to conversion than an actual conversion vehicle. And when you look at our campaigns, and I think we're really reaching that sweet spot now where we've brought forth a strong social media presence around our current Seasons Past campaign with the Winter Warrior campaign. For anyone that wants to look it up, take a look at Blue Mountain Facebook and Winter Warrior, or bluemountain.ca /Winter Warrior. That campaign started in the digital world, and that's where we're doing all the contesting, all the sign up, all the information. But we're pulling assets out of that campaign. The strong 2-minute video has been brought into a 30-second television spot that doesn't have a conversion. It has a call to action that is basically bluemountain.ca. It's not sign up and win now. It's not. I don't think you'll get people to pull over their car or perhaps run from their television to their iPad for something unless it's an incredibly integrated campaign. But using that media and the radio that will go with it as a supporting medium is very interesting to me.
Okay, so I like where you're going with that. I want to go down that vein for a minute. The way you use the example, you have a campaign running right now. It's called Winter Warrior. Is that correct? Okay,
that's correct.
Can you walk through with me and listeners sort of how you guys went about actually creating that campaign?
Sure, I can give you that.
Like what are the bullet points?
We can condense 6 or 7 months worth of work into a few minutes.
Of course, yeah. That's what podcasts for.
The core of the idea comes from what we experienced last year. You're an active winter participant, so you'll sympathize with me here. Probably one of the best snow years in 15 to 20 years here at Blue Mountain and in Ontario. Unfortunately, at the same time, we also experienced what our friends at the Weather Network call polar vortex, or extreme cold, hideous cold. I think I've heard them all last year. What we found is that we were really filtering, the weather was filtering our visitation. People would literally stop visiting because of the cold. What we're trying to do with Winter Warrior, so the central core is to really reach back into time into something we've been working on for a while, which was the concept that there are many people out there that don't like winter.
Yes.
It's too bad for them, but they don't like winter. We're interested in the Winter Warrior. We're interested in the people that want to get outside, want to be part of what we consider to be the most enjoyable, the best way to spend time with your friends and family in the winter, and that's the sport of skiing and snowboarding. So we've crafted this message around a 2-minute promotional video that's your basic YouTube piece of content that really puts our proposition out there. And I certainly encourage everyone to jump onto YouTube and take a look for it, because I think we're pretty proud of it, because it really puts our proposition out there. We're not looking for...
I'll put it in the notes as well on the sub page, so people can click a link and get to it easily, Paul.
So that idea was formed totally in the digital, and more interestingly, totally in the social space. What we've done is we've expanded that little nugget of an idea into a contest. Join the Winter Warriors.
Okay.
Recruit your Winter Warriors for a chance to win, and it's a great little prize pack from Blue Mountain.
Okay.
The media is all hitting at a time when we're out actively soliciting business from what we consider to be the core of our Winter Warriors, which are our Seasons Pass holders. So you can see how we're not really driving a retail message of $199 for a Seasons Pass. We're trying to drive an emotional experience in many different channels. To support that, we've chosen to take our 2-minute video and recut it, as I mentioned earlier, recut it into a 30-second television spot, to pull the audio off and reformat it into a 30-second radio spot. I think as we walk through each of those touch points, our out of home is very dynamic and based on being a Winter Warrior, and the concept that, well, hibernation is not an option this year. You have to get outside. It's I like to say somehow it's un-Canadian not to ski and snowboard. There might be a hockey player or something that's going to come up and get me now, but to all the hockey players out there, I love playing hockey as well. That I grew up in a hockey family, but that's what we're trying to feel. We're trying to move from that truly retail price-based into something that differentiates Blue Mountain, talks to our brand, talks to our size, talks to our position in the marketplace as a leader, and also talks to the emotional side of what the skier and snowboarder experience. They are different. They're winter warriors. If it's any indication, I posted a picture of a bumper sticker on my personal Facebook page, and I think I've mailed out about 50 of them in the last 2 days. People looking for these bumper stickers, #WinterWarrior. It's an interesting time.
I like it, and I took some notes here. So to summarize some of what you said, and thank you for breaking that down for everybody listening, Paul. What I heard that you guys did was, first of all, you identified a problem, and it was this issue last year where it was almost too cold here in Ontario.
I don't think it was too cold, but someone did.
Someone did. Some consumers out there did. You then took what was the problem and you framed it in a different way. So you actually almost bounced off the problem. I forget who it was that said this. It was a famous musician. And when he was younger, I wish I could remember the name. But when he was younger, he was playing with some giants. He's like 24 years old, playing in New York City, playing with giants around him. When I say giants, I mean very big names in music. Right. And what happened was he was a bit newer, obviously a very talented guy, but a bit newer playing in that kind of environment. And they were playing in a, pardon me, let me just drink some water.
Absolutely.
They were playing in like a little bar or whatever, and the cash register kept going off, and it was distracting him. So that's the problem, right? So it keeps going off, and he was actually screwing up. And then so afterwards, his mentor said to him, and he came and said, I had an issue with like that cash register. It kept going off. It was distracting me. And the mentor said, man, don't worry about the cash register. He said, when the cash register, and he says, when the cash register goes ding, ding, dong, dong, what you do is you play off the cash register, and you go bing, bong, 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 and then the drummer is going to be going ding, 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 right? And that the cash register is part of the music.
So that's awesome. That's awesome. I think that's kind of, central to some of the things that we believe here as an organization. Yeah. We talk about, we've tried to make a conscious shift from problem to that's an opportunity. The gap that we had last year in our marketing program is the opportunity we have this year. It really is a continuous improvement sort of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what you did was you framed it. That was the second thing that I heard, Paul. And then what you did was you literally created a 2-minute video to encapsulate that marketing message. You framed it also inside of a contest. Do people actually submit their information at all in that
Absolutely.
Contest? Okay. Yep. So there's a prize, like a sweepstakes kind of thing?
Yeah, it's totally a sweepstakes. You're right.
Yeah. You then went out and you purchased media to create awareness for the contest, both offline and online. And you said something, I think, very important to people. You chose to go for more of the emotion and working with the brand values and brand promises of Blue Mountain versus, which in certain situations could also be legitimate, versus just going for the offer or going for the price. You guys chose not to do that this time. You chose to go for emotion and brand in this case.
I think that's exactly right. I think that's one of the biggest challenges we've had over the last couple of years is realizing that anybody can play in the price game. Not everyone can play in the emotion game. Not everyone's prepared to do that. And I think people take pride in everything they purchase, be it a season's pass to a 4-season resort or the latest iPhone 6. Hopefully they haven't bent it, but I think there's nothing wrong with taking a bit of pride in what you do.
Okay. Approximate split percentage-wise between offline media buying and online media buying these days? Approximate percentage?
Globally, we're about, on a global basis and historical, we have been about 65-35 offline to online. That's shifting remarkably. That's those resources are changing every year.
65 offline, 35% online, shifting more towards online. Where do you see Yeah, where do you see those numbers in about 2 years if you're to forecast?
Well, I think we're going to go over the edge this year, probably 50-50 or more towards digital. It's and that's counting the inputs that we make into it. If you think of this campaign that I just outlined to you, we're very close to 50-50 when you talk about the straight cost. Yes, putting a video up on YouTube is free. Building that video is not.
Sure.
That's a great example of why why we have such an involved and passionate team is all the storyboarding, all the conceptualization of this entire campaign has been done in-house. Where we've tapped the professional resources, it's professional editing and assembly of our video. It's resources like that we just don't simply have in-house that have allowed us. But they all add up, and that's adding up into that 50-50 for this campaign.
If you were the VP of marketing for a brand right now in your sector, this is an interesting question. And okay, so you're same role, different resort though, and one that might not be as popular as Blue Mountain, and obviously the Mountain's not as good either. Okay. So you don't have the 50 years of brand equity, and you need to go in, and the budgets aren't as big either.
Right.
What would you and you're new in the role? What would you be doing in that instance so that you could build that brand and drive more revenue for that company?
I think the tactics would be the same. The targets would be far more specialized, and people often ask me, so what's your target market for skiing? What does Toronto look like demographically speaking? What we are is psychographically focused. Skiing and snowboarding are young to old, thin to not so thin, tall to short, everything in between. But they all share a love of being outdoors and being adventurous. If I was at that smaller resort, I'd find my niche, find a niche that I can compete on. Whether I'm a city resort, and there's some doing it very well in Toronto, the city areas such as North York Ski Center seem to do it very, very well in the beginner space, something that Blue Mountain doesn't do because of its size. I think we'd have a great program, but people are somewhat intimidated by the relative size of the vertical. Much the same as I would imagine that few people pack up, get on an airplane, and go to a Western resort to learn to ski. So
okay.
Find that niche. That's what I would recommend.
But you'd hunt down that niche, who that exact right buyer is, and then you would go after that buyer through marketing.
Exactly. What can I offer? Where am I going to specialize? Where the meat of my little niche is, and go after it, because it's tough to be all things to all people.
You'd stick to the fundamentals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to touch on this briefly. So you guys are getting into email marketing automation soon? Is that
we are?
Correct, or you already are in that?
We have been running some test programs. We are spending a lot more time with marketing automation, particularly in our upcoming launch of our conference, revised conference presence. So for those that don't know, we're not only a ski resort and a summer resort. About 50% of our lodging business comes from conference source, and then that's great because what it makes is a resort that can survive year round. Peak summer and peak winter are 6 months apart. In between, you have a whole bunch of opportunity to cultivate a conference business, and so we now have just around 90,000 gross square feet of conference center here at Blue Mountain, and a little bit more to add back in our new facility, which is part tennis, part trade show space. We have to drive that business, and what we're finding is that if you really apply the content marketing and inbound disciplines, you can generate far more marketing qualified leads for our sales team than just simply running ads in trade publications or just having the sales team make random cold calls. So we're really we're fingers crossed. We're kicking that off later this fall, and our early tests were encouraging. So now we're plunging in with a brand new web presence and a whole bunch of material.
So one of the objectives that you use, it's to drive more conference sales, for instance?
It's a nice little market, conference and wedding sales. So those are two markets where I think that the inbound principle and the content marketing principle really apply, and that automation allows us to keep a steady flow of information moving to this individual let's say they've signed up for, we've scored them as a potential meeting planner, someone who's not already in our database. They're a professional. They're looking for a resource. They have a resource from us. We can move them through that marketing automation funnel, in the appropriate time.
Yeah, and for those listening, if you're new to the term marketing automation, it's essentially finding a way to segment down your lists accordingly based on interests or profiling those buyers, and then ensuring you have some type of process or system where you're sending the right message to the right person at the right time. Mm-hmm. Paul, can you maybe share then, so you mentioned content inbound, which is a way to generate leads, and that can then go in your funnel, and you can start the marketing automation process or sequence. Can you maybe share an example or two of what you're planning on like what, so what is the content marketing? Like, what are you actually doing content marketing wise to generate?
Well, some of the biggest things that we're planning and are in production right now are actually around a very tightly defined portion of our marketplace, which is the wedding business. We have a very unique venue, and people seem to like to get married in unique venues. So, the opportunity to bring useful marketing to that potential bride, or it is the bride that's booking. Let's face it. I'm not sure the groom gets much involvement, really. I don't seem to remember that in my wedding, but it's all good. Bringing in those how to stage a successful resort wedding, making it easy for them. In many cases, I think you'll find that we're exploring areas of, hey, here's the list of all of our photographers we've worked with. Why keep that content under wraps, and why wait for someone to book to give them a list of photographers? Get it out there. Right. Let the bride walk through your wedding planner and be able to contact everyone she wants, and keep bringing that to her on a regular basis as we get her closer to either a lead, or potentially even afterwards as a confirmed guest.
Are you going to go so the most common content marketing that I would think of is like blog articles, with very specific articles that are valuable for that woman in that instance.
Right. We did all of that with testing, and now what we're trying to do is set up a bit of a way of bringing that individual into our database via gated content.
Okay, such as downloading a report or an e-guide? Is that what you mean by
imagine the wedding planner, the how to plan the perfect resort wedding is actually one of the pieces we have in production.
When you're out there, so when you're actually producing the content, so that would be like whatever, that report, the gated content, or a blog article, that's online. Are you doing as part of this overall strategy, are you doing anything offline, or is it solely online?
Honestly, for this, I anticipate working almost exclusively in the online space. Whether it's search, whether it's display, I anticipate being in the online space.
Okay. Have you guys, there's a lot of, popular marketing automation softwares out there these days. There's Infusionsoft, there's HubSpot, right? There's Marketo. Have you guys settled yet on a software that you're very satisfied with as a company?
Not yet. Not yet. Ultimately, that's one of the biggest challenges. It's I describe it as being in the sticky end of the small, mid-sized business market. Many of the features our appetite is for enterprise class software. It's either a very expensive purchase or a purchase that is so difficult to deploy that it eludes the small to mid-sized market. We're a $100 million company, and that sounds huge, but when I think the U.S. defines it as 10 million to 1 billion in sales, I realize I'm still on the lower end of the small, medium. Maybe I'm just into medium.
Sure. Okay, so we're going to start to slowly wind things down as 50 minutes in. This has been a great talk, so I really appreciate you sharing your kind of wisdom and some of the things that you guys are doing, especially in the online space. I think it's going to be extremely valuable to those listening. There's going to be CEOs, marketing directors listening to this call right now, Paul, and some of which, like all of us, we're trying to keep up with the web, and we're trying to keep up with digital. Do you have any tips that you found for yourself that works very well with keeping up with all of the change?
Wow, that's a challenging question. I think you have to be a consumer. You have to be out reading, engaging, looking, and I try to take good-sized portions of my work week and my personal life, if you will, to engage, whether that's through trying to explore technology on my own, or simply sitting down and finding a time to read through various white papers and just get a sense of where the industry is. Ultimately, I think one of the challenges is that we tend to rely on just white papers and things like that, and I think you need to get out and network with peers and agencies and have conversations. And sometimes there's conversations that don't result in business either way, but they inform you in some fashion.
So one of your structures is you speak with peers oftentimes about what's working for them.
Absolutely, peers. Nicely within our industry, I can speak with competitors. We're a fairly open industry, and
right.
so we do have skiing is a very small, resort is a very small business, and so the opportunity to speak with competitors and have a chit chat is also valuable.
Excellent advice, Paul. And I'll recommend something for anybody that is trying to keep up with different blogs or news websites out that for RSS feeding, and that's where you can, through one sort of app, subscribe to a number of different articles and all have it come into one place for you. I've started using the website Feedly, and I'm having some success with it. Nice user interface, and it's one of the things that I use to be able to follow in a simple way the articles I want to follow, and it saves me time. So I just want to share that with everybody as well.
I'm going to take that one away as well. The bombardment in the Twitter space and in the email space is getting a bit challenging. So I'll take Feedly away as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So much information out there these days. Okay. What I want to do now is I want to kind of jump into a fun kind of closing section of our talk today, Paul, and we call this the lightning round, where I get to ask you, as the subject matter expert, 8 questions. And with answers that are pretty fast, 5 to 10 second type answers, and it's to not only have some fun here, but also share some of your knowledge or recommendations with our friends who are listening.
Great.
Ready?
All right.
Fire away. So number 1, what business book would you recommend to colleagues?
Utility by Jay Baer. Big fan. Love where he's going.
Okay, yeah, and I have not read the book, but I like the premise, and the basic premise, everybody, is that you now can create things for people like mobile apps or e-guides that provide value to consumers, and that in and of itself is a way to market your brand.
Yeah, imagine if marketing was something you welcomed.
Yes.
It's a pretty powerful thought.
Yeah, so you recommend that book. You enjoyed it, eh, Paul?
100%. Great read, easy, love it.
Okay, one fiction book that you'd recommend to friends.
I'm latecomer to Dan Brown. My wife finally convinced me to read him. So Inferno was quite a good romp, but I'd choose anything by Cory Doctorow. Just go down out in the Magic Kingdom. Lots of fun.
Okay. What time do you arrive at the office typically?
Oh, typically a little after 8 in the morning. It's I like to get my day started fairly early.
Okay. Do you start it with a ski run?
In the winter, I will, if I can. But you know what? Honestly, my guilty pleasure is still being able to put my daughter on the school bus.
Sure. That wasn't that the ski run wasn't one of our 8 questions, but I was dying to ask you because of the leisurely type of business that you're doing. Many of us are envious at times. What time do you leave the office typically?
You know, I honestly try to be out around the 5:30 time frame. Again, it's I think that work-life balance is an incredibly important part of what we should be experiencing, and that work-life balance, I think, ultimately gives you the opportunity to come back to it a little bit later. There's oftentimes after Haley's in bed that I'll jump back on the laptop or do a little bit of work just because I get the pleasure of being home when she's home.
It's a good segue into question number 5. So if you were to combine then sort of your at work hours and your out of work hours, how many total hours do you think you put in per week in your role?
I don't think we should let the Ministry of Labor hear this, but I think we're always working. I think if you love what you do, you're at some point every day you're working, you're thinking, you're doing. That doesn't mean that we're pounding away on a keyboard, but it means that you're making a mental note. I've often been outside. One of my guilty pleasures is restoring classic cars, and I'll be working in the shop, and all of a sudden I'll be like, okay, I have an idea. Let's just go and jot something down. So, and I think that's the product of having a great working environment and a passion for the business.
Right. Okay. How do you keep up with industry news?
Lots of emails, lots of conversation. Ultimately, I find the most valuable ones getting face-to-face with people. I think we become very reliant on email and Twitter and everything else for quick little snippets of news, but it's amazing the opportunities I have to go out and to speak to people in my industry, from outside my industry, in completely separate jobs, and see where things are going, see what they're experiencing. I love talking to people who are nearly related to us in the sales field, but I love talking to engineers, technology people. You never know when something's going to connect.
Yeah, that's very intriguing to me, because I think many of us, I'm definitely one of those people that really, it becomes easy just to read another blog article. But what I really like about sort of your approach to some of this stuff is you're literally trying to continually be in conversations with people. So that's just intriguing. I'm taking something definitely away from that tip, so thank you. Number 7, email or phone guy, preferably, and why?
I'm an email guy, but I should be a phone guy, and it points back to what I've been saying. And I'd love to say that I was completely not guilty of just reading an email, just responding to Twitter, just getting my information that way. I think we run a risk of losing the human touch if we don't talk to people, and that's something that I feel that I need to work on very regularly, is that human interaction. Reach out to people, be a part of your industry. Yeah, I'm totally an email guy, need to be a phone guy.
Now, I sent these 8 questions to Paul in advance, so he knew about them, but what I didn't tell you, Paul, by accident, is I've shifted slightly the last one, but it is, I hope I don't throw you too off here. If you could impart wisdom on yourself when you were starting out in the marketing industry. So the previous question was, 20 years ago, but I thought this would be a better question to be answered for everybody listening. So if you can impart wisdom on yourself when you were starting out in the marketing industry, however many years ago, knowing what you know now, what would that one thing be?
Marketing plans are somewhat a waste of time, particularly now as business rules change all the time. That's probably the one thing that I would, within specific marketing, I think as a manager, as an organizer of people, I would suggest that probably the best thing you can do is hire for attitude, not aptitude. You can put out all the requirements you want in a job posting and talk about how much HTML experience someone has, but if you bring in someone who's poisonous to your team, you're in deep trouble. And I've had that experience, and I've learned through it a couple of times in my career where this fantastic person comes and they're just not the right fit, and they eventually leave on their own, but the damage that's done is quite a challenge.
I hear you. Paul, that's a great last piece of wisdom to end on. Thank you for your time today. This was a very informative podcast, so appreciate you doing it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great fun.
In closing, how can listeners best get in touch with you?
You know what? Why don't we start by picking up the phone, call Blue Mountain Resort and ask to speak to me. They know who I am. I'll be honest with you, I'm working on the phone guy thing, so give me a call. If we want to stay in the digital space, hit me up on LinkedIn. That's the one that I use. I'll take just about anybody's connection on LinkedIn, because I think it's something that we should do as people.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Thanks for doing the call, Paul.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a great day.